Legacy as a mechanic is extremely enticing to players, as it has you permanently alter the board and cards in a game, so much so that your copy should feel just like your own. Now, there are many popular games that already have Legacy versions, such as Pandemic and Betrayal House on the Hill. But now the popular series Ticket to Ride has thrown its hat in the ring with Ticket to Ride Legacy Legends of the West. Here, you'll be building up the rails in the United States, starting on the East Coast and making your way all the way to California. Now, of course, Ticket to Ride already has tons of expansions, tons of different ways to play. So we're going to take a look at both a spoiler-free section in case you want to just hear a little bit without knowing what the campaign actually unlocks, as well as showing the full expanse of the map after I've finished my campaign. So if you want to see what it actually looks like at the end, as this is one of those Legacy games where there is replayability when you finish the campaign. So let's get this review on the rails and see whether this Legacy version is worthy of Ticket to Ride's legacy. The game in this video was not provided to Roll4Crit by its creators or publishers. Roll4Crit was not paid, sponsored, or contacted by the game's creators or publishers to make this video. So for the first overhead part, it's going to be really quick as I don't want to show off anything that wouldn't be already seen in the first game, but that does leave this to be a little bit smaller than you would expect, and you'd be right. The starting board includes most of the East Coast and up to the Appalachian Mountains. However, my board has Legacy components on there that I didn't want to show off in case you wanted to be surprised when you unlock them. However, this should be enough to just give the basic summary of what Ticket to Ride Legacy is, which is a lot of games of Ticket to Ride. There are going to be some differences. This is a Legacy game. You'll be marking things. You'll be unlocking new rules. But if you've played Ticket to Ride, congratulations, you know about 80% of this game already. If you've never played Ticket to Ride, basically, you'll be placing your little train cars on these rail tracks. In order to do so, you need to play these cards in colors that match the tracks that you want to build on. The reason you're doing this is you will have these ticket cards here from this deck that you will keep secret until the end of the game. If you successfully connect those two cities with your railways, you'll earn points. If you're unsuccessful, you'll lose points. Now, this is a Legacy game and there'll be plenty of more rules added as you play, but here are some of the differences you'll know right off the bat. Before anything, you'll actually be seeing things that you won't even know until they're unlocked. For example, the train cars have skulls and pickaxes. You don't know what those are for, and you won't until you unlock some other areas. Then there are the components for your color. You are a train company, and you will have your own cards for your company, as well as a special box for them. This will be used to keep track of your own personal components, as well as your final score. Then, of course, there's this green deck here. That's an event deck. Whenever a newspaper card is drawn, you will reveal the top card of the event deck. Sometimes it can be a one-time instant effect or a new rule that stays out until a new event is flipped. Either way, you'll keep playing until the game ends, just like in normal Ticket to Ride, where now you will add up the total money you earn, not victory points, and at the end of the game, you'll be filling out this bank sheet with the number of just points or coins in this case you've gotten on hand, the number of trains you have remaining, so the more trains on the board, the better, and finally, the total value of tickets that you completed or were unable to complete. Add up your total and see who won this round of the Legacy campaign. And then this is where the interesting part of your deck box come in. Your company box has actually two parts. This is where you'd store your own little personal components that you would unlock and have open at the beginning of each round. However, this part is your vault. Anytime you score anything, it's going to be added into here. And you won't open it until the very end of the Legacy campaign. After 12 games, you will actually open it up, add up everything in there, and see who is the true winner. All right, so first, the spoiler-free part, or at least trying to keep it spoiler-free as possible. First, let's talk about the campaign itself. This is a Legacy game. If you've never heard about a Legacy game, basically new elements will be added along the way, many of them usually involving permanently marking pieces on the board or cards. Now, there are many ones that you'll come across and that may disappear afterwards. However, one of the ones I think is the best will be unlocked right away after the first game. And it sticks with you until the very end, which I was really happy about. I really want to tell you about it, but it's such a good reveal and not something that, it's not just adding stickers to the board, which you can say about, I'm trying to think if there's a Legacy game that doesn't have stickers. But my point being, it's very thematic. It was a very cool, fun reveal. And it's nice that at least one of my favorite Legacy elements in this game was something that you will always have a part of you as you play through the entire campaign. Now, in terms of other mechanics, I did enjoy most of them. The problem being is sometimes I just felt bad when they left on a couple of them, and you're just like, oh, I wish I had another turn and stuff or got to play with it more. But it's not the worst thing in the world. And it was fun to see what each new map piece that is added to the board brings to the table, because usually that's when you got another fun, weird mechanic or weird way to play the game and score points. Now, in terms of that final moment, there are two things I want to point out. First, at the end of each game, you will score, and that score will always be hidden. I really like this, as it basically makes it so you never know, just like regular Ticket to Ride, if you are actually winning. You know, someone could have a bunch of tickets, but they're all worth small values, versus maybe you have two really big tickets. And here, it's adding up the entire score. So one bad game doesn't mean you've lost. It's not I won 6 games, you won 5 games, therefore I beat you. I could win more games than you, but if I didn't score that high and then you scored really high in a couple other ones, that might make the difference for you to win. You never feel like, unless you have someone who's perfect at remembering everyone's scores and numbers, that you could say, oh, there's no way I have a horse in this race. So that keeps people playing and trying to see if they're the ones who come out on top. Now, this is a legacy game, which is a campaign game, meaning that you probably, want everyone at the table for every game. This is one of the big problems with this style of gameplay, as ask any RPG DM and how often and they're able to keep a schedule with their player group. That said, here, there is a good little fix. I don't think it is the fix to every campaign game for this kind of problem. If you miss a game, the game has a system in place that makes it so you won't have a huge penalty for missing that game, or at least not nearly as big. I don't want to say too much, as it's something that you shouldn't rely on, because you should, want to play the game, but you can feel a bit more comfortable, or at least less guilty, should you accidentally, life happens and can't show up to a round. This is something that is pretty nice. We didn't have anyone who missed any games for us, so we couldn't do an official oh, this worked way better. But I will say, looking at the system at the end of the game, I will say this seems pretty fair and reasonable. So that is a nice extra touch, especially for, this is Ticket to Ride. This is not some hugely advanced game. I feel actually be pretty likely this could be the first time someone plays a legacy game is through this one, or maybe first campaign experience. So trying to mitigate that kind of problem and issue was something that I was very happy about. Now, other competitive legacy games can have these moments where if you either win a bunch early on or lose a bunch early on, the rewards divvied out make it so that player feels like they're just snowballing, regardless of keeping track of score. I've never felt in a game that the rewards were too swingy, that one player was like, oh, they're going to just slaughter this next round. Now, this does mean you're not going to get those crazy moments where I get to now name this state and no one can build in this state without paying a huge tax to me. Something that may be appealing to people in the legacy format. However, I do think this makes for a much smoother experience when playing through this campaign. In terms of its replayability, it's going to be playing the same. You keep a couple of the mechanics that you unlock throughout the game, but for the most part, it's going to be using this map to play Ticket to Ride. And that will bring me probably the biggest problem I have with the replayability is the ticket stack. You see, as you unlock different pieces of the United States, the tickets that are unlocked with it, you can unlock them in weird ways. You don't always go this area, then this area, then this area. You can go all the way to the north. You can go through the south. And because of that, they don't know what you've unlocked. So when you unlock tickets, they'll basically only involve the location they were unlocked in or the East Coast. So by the end of the game, basically every ticket is either really small distance in an area from wherever it was from, or it's east to west. And that basically leaves every player always making a transcontinental road, rather than, in at least my game's Ticket to Ride, sometimes someone does that. Maybe one person's just spreading out in the northwest corners or something. And I just feel, I wish there was a new deck unlocked or something, new cards added in there to add maybe some more variety to the kinds of tickets you will use. Now, this may sound worrisome to you, as if everyone's trying to build the same thing, you'll probably want the same routes. There is a mechanic that will help with that, but you will unlock it after the first game. Now, in terms of the entire campaign itself, this is 12 games of Ticket to Ride. Even if you throw in all the other gimmicks that may be added throughout the campaign, it's not going to drastically change too much of what you're planning unless you're, trying to make sure like, oh, I won't do well this game because I'm really going to plan out some stickers or something, which is relatively rare. Maybe you take a turn for that, not a whole game. You got to be ready to basically play 12 games of Ticket to Ride. And that for some people may be very boring. Other people may really like that. I know it seems obvious, but it really should be the main hurdle if you want to play Ticket to Ride or not. You're willing to play it 12 times. I could talk about whatever's added in here, what's changed. It's not enough that you're like, oh, I didn't like Ticket to Ride, but this is the version I like. It's still Ticket to Ride. I happen to enjoy Ticket to Ride, so I had a great time playing through all 12 of these games. Now, in terms of the replayability part, it's definitely there. You're going to have a big board with a fun map of America, of course, with all your little changes on there. And it will basically score almost like how the last round did. So you're basically going to just be replaying that with whatever extra gimmicks are there or are not there. I won't say too much. But there is one problem I do have with the replayability. As you progress, like I said, you're unlocking pieces of United States as you slowly reveal everything. It'll come with new tickets that are added to the ticket deck, basically, so you can build tickets to those locations. However, because you are not forced to unlock the states in a specific order, they wanted to make sure that they didn't add tickets of areas that weren't unlocked yet. And that has made every ticket always have to involve the East Coast or only in whatever region was unlocked. So, for example, it may go from the East Coast to California or to 2 locations in California. You'll never have something from California go to the middle of the country. That will be up to you, but I think for now I've covered mostly everything I want to say. That maybe I've hinted and spoiled a bit too much, but not going like full spoilery. So for now, we're actually going to return to the overhead camera and see what it looks like once you finish the game. So this is your final warning. I will have a timestamp, of course, in the description below, but I'll flash it up on screen. So you can just skip to the crits and misses, and the final little part I'll also keep spoiler free. So, final warning. Are you good? Are you going to keep watching? Great. Let's go back to the overhead. Behold the final map that you unlock after playing through all 12 campaigns of the game. Now, as you can see, it's, most of North America. There are some issues happening here. I'll let you find out why California looks a tiny bit different. But basically, you will have unlocked from coast to coast of continental United States. Now, here are some of the other legacy pieces that I didn't go over that you will take advantage of while playing. So the first thing we're going to talk about are, what should be expected in any legacy game, stickers. Now, a lot of these tracks, especially as you go farther west, are actually stickers. They initially start blank, but when a company builds over them, it'll change into whatever cards they use to build on that track. There is a bonus for building on your own track, so you're incentivized to trying to build more tracks of your own color. There's also ways for you to put stickers over cities, making them either yours or bigger cities, which will give you rewards if you build to them. Then each area usually has some gimmick. For example, down here in the Sierra Madre, you are digging for treasure. These are map fragments. The haunted wastes actually have a ghost train that will curse you, and California has bridges, which will give you money if you build on them. However, they can become damaged from earthquake events that are added to the event deck. However, the one big legacy component that's unlocked right after the first game, it's something you're going to be doing a lot, involves this hole puncher. You will be collecting tickets, often hole punching them after you use them, and other components as well. Now, certain cards have limits, and when you reach that limit, they will be removed from the game, however, not destroyed. Some cards may return for the replayable mode at the end of the campaign. You also will early unlock this card called piggybacking. Piggybacking allows you to build alongside a route that's already been built on. This way, even if someone blocks that one route you needed, you can flip this card over in order to possibly stop from having to take a long alternate route. There are also going to be employees you can hire. At the start of each game, you will draft them in reverse play order, each of them giving you new, unique powers, or maybe some extra goodies at the start of the game. Finally, near your end of your Legacy campaign, you will unlock stocks. They will look like this, and usually there will be 2 out and available. Whenever you build on a route of that color, you can claim that stock, and then a new one will flip out. At the end of the game, for each color, the person who has the most of that stock will get 20 points, then 15, then 10, then 5. This is one of the mechanics that's kept even in the replayability mode, unlike, for example, the thief here or this little ghost car, which will leave the game at the end whether or not you completed whatever their sub-events were. So you'll play through 12 games, punching holes in tickets, as well as slowly marking and making your way as you try to become the greatest rail company in US history. So you saw the final board. It's very big, and you could probably guess what I was referring to throughout the spoiler-free section when I was trying to be like, not really describing what was going on, but referring to the big legacy component that I fell in love with was the hole puncher here. It was a really fun way to mark and destroy cards, but in a way that was very thematic to the game. It also felt really nice when you did the final like hole in something and be like, oh, I completed this card, or this is its final use. It felt better than just ripping a card like for one-time use, even though it's almost the same thing, except unless it might have multiple charges or uses. And of course, the postcards you unlock also gave you, I think, enough really cool powers without even still keeping the thing I said before about not being too swingy. And once again, that wasn't because usually you won. You could still come in like second or third place and still get a really good postcard power. So those felt more like fun rewards for exploring rather than just winning or losing and metagaming the legacy system. Now, some of the legacy components that were there but leave, such as the Ghost Train and Thief, they tell you that they are removed permanently. Personally, I actually think that you should keep them as modules because I don't think that they ruin the regular game. You just need to know this area can be very scary to build around, and the little thief can just rob people. I think that could be really funny to have as just an additional bonus. I don't know, balancing wise, but if you look at the board, I think balancing sort of went out the window because certain colors might have a better advantage, or at the very least, become more desirable cards when they are flipped out. I will say that in terms of going first, I mentioned how like you don't have those big fun rewards where you get the name of town or estate. Going first is basically choosing what area you unlock. And I will say that felt a little bit just like, because anyone would have done that. And outside of like one situation, it wasn't anything crazy like, oh, I can't believe you unlocked this area before this area. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you know, it was something that was there. And I mean, it's fine in terms of balancing points, but you're not going to get that real feel good moment because you were the one who got to rename a continent like in Risk Legacy. But most of the legacy will come during the actual gameplay itself. Like I said, with the postcards, putting down stickers to make railways. So you're still getting those elements of being able to shape the world. It's just you're not going to get it because you won a game. It's not as that big exciting moment, but I think it was a worthwhile price to pay as no one ever felt like really bad on how they did in the game because in getting a bonus. It was more of just, all right, I did bad this round. I got to score a little bit better in my next 5 games if I want to catch up to you in the later rounds. A lot of the things I have problems with this game are almost there more because it actually makes the game maybe more balanced and a more enjoyable legacy experience. And it's hard to fault them for that. It still keeps the core Ticket to Ride mechanics, which there's a reason why Ticket to Ride is such a popular game. I didn't think they needed to reinvent the wheel here. Maybe for some people that makes it a little bit more boring, but for me personally, this was still a great ride and a great experience. Crits and misses for Ticket to Ride Legacy, Legends of the West. Crits. The game includes plenty of fun and some very thematic legacy components that you will unlock as the game progresses. In particular, though, I want to point out no one ever seemed to have an unfair advantage because of the bonuses they unlocked from winning or losing a particular round, and always felt like everyone had a horse in the race until the very end when we tallied up scores. Legacy is a fun gameplay mechanic, however, it does have its pitfalls, and I do see how they tried to design some of those pitfalls away here. For example, if you miss some games, you do still have a way to earn points, therefore not making it a huge loss when it comes to the end of the game. They did their best to make sure you had a great gameplay experience, even if you weren't able to show up to every match. Having your own personalized final board is a cool plus because, well, it's your own personalized board. This will be different from what a normal Ticket to Ride board is, including having some mechanics that are in base Ticket to Ride. I can't say for certain I have not played every expansion or specific map, but at the very least, it will play differently than regular Ticket to Ride, and not just because of how you all decide to place stickers on the board. Misses. While I did enjoy a lot of the legacy components in this game, they aren't going to be anything too wild or crazy. You're still going to end up with a very similar map to other people, just looking slightly different. This isn't going to be the kind of legacy game when you have to make a drastic decision that will permanently wall off an entire mechanic or part of the map.
You'll get new gimmicks, new fun tools to mess with, but you are playing 12 games of Ticket to Ride. If that doesn't sound fun to you, then I don't recommend getting this game. My biggest gripe in the game are in the ticket cards. They are designed in such a way that you won't get punished with how you unlock the map, but it also means that every ticket cities will only include either an East Coast or the sector it was unlocked in. Everything basically ends up with everyone going from the far East Coast to the far West, which, while they have some mechanics to help you mitigate the problem of people maybe taking up too many routes, it just didn't feel like the same experience I've had where one person covers up mostly the southern routes or one person only gets tickets on the western side of the map that I see in more normal games of Ticket to Ride. In the end, I'm really happy with what they did here, and I think they handled Legacy in a very fun way. There are the classic things we've seen before. There are some new things, including one of my favorite ones, which I said in the spoiler full section, that you will always be using throughout the entire campaign. There are some little hitches here and there, including a couple things that I think could have been added to the replayability mode or some things added for that. But overall, I still think this is going to be a great experience if you enjoy Ticket to Ride. You're going to have a fun time slowly growing out the board. You're never going to feel like you're just have no chance of winning or someone got a super unfair bonus that is going to make it so they don't have to try in order to win the entire campaign. You're going to play through 12 games, and if you score well enough, see if you were able to eke out and prove that your railroad company was the best. Now, you can let me know your thoughts, and if you agree with what I said, do you disagree? Of course, try to keep things maybe spoilery free if you've already finished the campaign, even though I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you are new and maybe I didn't address something well enough or specific enough that you have questions about, I or maybe someone else will try their best to answer without giving away too much in the comments down below. And I can't wait to read what you wrote down there and what your experiences are in this version of Ticket to Ride. But for now, I'm Will, and this has been a Roll for Crit review.